One of the guests remarks that he should follow in his father's footsteps and become a surgeon. His mother, however, seems indifferent toward him. Years later, the same boy, now a grown man and a surgeon, attends his mother's funeral. From the cemetery, he heads directly to the hospital to perform surgery. Dr. Allen had hoped to lead the operation himself, thinking his colleague would still be at the funeral. But Nick, now a confident surgeon, takes over. Afterward, he returns to his family's grand estate, where memories of his mother's flirtations with various elderly men flood back to him. Later that evening, Nick joins his colleague, Dr. Lawrence, at a bar to celebrate the success of a recent operation. They manage to save the arm of an 11-year-old child. While enjoying the moment, Nick suddenly catches sight of Helena and freezes. Overcome with panic, he immediately wants to leave. Helena, it appears, is his former lover, someone he clearly hasn't moved on from, despite being involved with someone else now. Before dinner, Nick decides to go for a run and ends up near Helena's home. He doesn't have the courage to ring the doorbell, so he climbs a tree and watches her from afar as she sips a cocktail and gazes at the evening sky. Nick smiles at the peaceful sight, until he notices that Helena is not alone in the room. When he realized what they were doing there, he didn't want to watch anymore and ran away, but not home. When he got to the nearest phone booth, Nick called Lawrence and asked him how he could get Helena back. It turns out that they only had fun once, but he still can't forget her. Lawrence gives him good advice: just stay away from her and think about his new girlfriend. However, the obsessed man does not calm down and sends Helena a postcard inviting her to a housewarming party. On the way back, Nick stops in front of Helena's house again. Meanwhile, Anne hasn't waited for him to come home for dinner. When her boyfriend finally returned home, she was already asleep. Now, Nick rehearses a call to his beloved, finally decides to make the call. Helena reluctantly pauses from her work and picks up the phone, but immediately hangs up. Irritated, she chases her boyfriend away, although she asks him to buy her some groceries beforehand. The angry man leaves, and Helena orders a drink and lemon juice from the store. As she falls asleep, Nick mentally wishes Helena good dreams. The next morning, Anne leaves before her young boyfriend wakes up. Nick calls her friends and invites them to the housewarming party, but it seems that this is just a pretext to lure Helena to his place. Ray, wearing a transparent t-shirt and leather pants, comes to Helena to invite her to a bar tonight, but she has other plans. She's going to visit her family and is flying to Mexico tomorrow. Helena kicks her lover out again, who has already managed to bore her. Many guests are gathering at Nick's house, but he is nervous and keeps looking at his watch, waiting only for Helena. Finally, Helena arrives, and Nick immediately starts following her. Meanwhile, her friend convinces Anne that she will soon be proposed to. Meanwhile, Helena walks around the house, ignoring the owner. Another guy, Russell, who is less shy and quickly finds a common language with her, looks at her. Helena decides that it would be a good idea to take a dip in the fountain. Anne wonders who this strange lady is who is swimming in front of everyone, showing off her figure. Helena invites Russell to have fun, and Anne asks Nick why he invited this woman. Russell mocks Nick and tells her that he is leaving with Helena. Even standing in front of her, Nick cannot hide his pain. As she leaves, Helena thanks Nick for the flowers and laughs in his face. The next morning, Helena leaves Nick a message. She forgot her purse and tells him to bring it to the airport. At the end, she adds that Russell sends his regards. The man dutifully goes to the airport, but is late. Because of this, Helena misses her flight and is now yelling at him. And then she discovers that her bag has disappeared, along with her notebook. Helena is angry. She has to go back to her fan's house to get the notebook. Inspired, Nick is going to cook lunch for the girl and tell her how he feels. However, she does not want anything from him. And yesterday she made it clear to him. He even began to beg her, and Helena agreed to go inside while he looked for the notebook. He quickly lit a scented candle and set the table. However, he caused Helena nothing but irritation. Helena was furious because he had set it up on purpose. She ran out of the mansion and walked to the highway. Nick rushed after her. Helena was distracted by him and put her back to the road. A passing car hit her and ran over her legs. Dr. Allen found out that Nick hadn't been to the hospital for several weeks, and they were left without their chief surgeon. Anne also hadn't seen him since the day of the party. Allen decided to pay him a visit. He immediately opened the door and remarked on how beautiful it was. The doctor noticed that Nick's phone was off. He came to ask Nick to write him a recommendation that would allow him to take the position of chief surgeon at the hospital. But the guy said that he still had time until Monday, so he would not rush. Nick assures him that he lives alone, but suddenly a loud sound comes from the next room. It's Helena. She has no legs. Allen is stunned by what he sees, and Nick explains to him that after the accident, due to hypoxia, he had to operate on the victim as soon as possible, and he did it right here in his mansion. Alan wants to take her to a hospital, but Nick says he is taking excellent care of her, and that is not necessary. And of course, he asks his colleague not to tell anyone about it. Nick no longer cares about his personal life. He was about to announce that he was leaving the hospital to devote all his time to Helena. Meanwhile, Alan will be able to take his place on Monday. He even promised to write a recommendation. As for the girl, don't worry, she is completely safe here. Helena is in a panic. She hopes that it's all just a bad dream. After a while, Nick brings a wheelchair into the room. The girl is furious. Everything that happened to her is because of him. He lured her here, but the surgeon believes that she should be grateful to him, at least for being alive. Despite everything, Nick continues to look after his guest. His friend, Dr. Lawrence, came to visit him, but this time the owner of the house did not open the door. He didn't even take the newspapers, pretending to leave. Helena did not have time to go to the door and show herself to Lawrence. Nick does not answer her phone calls either. Helena calls the guy a jerk and says that she will not allow him to look after her. For educational purposes, Nick takes the girl to the doorstep in the rain and suggests that she scream and call for help. Helena pretended to calm down and then hit the boy and really started screaming. Wiping her face with a towel, she says that she has never enjoyed being close to him. Nick doesn't want to talk about it. Meanwhile, Ray started looking for her. He asked the store clerk to let him know if he heard anything. In the evening, Nick returned drunk. He immediately turned on the music at full volume and gagged his captive. Then he took her somewhere far away. Anne waited for a while and then decided to open the door herself. She had a key. At that moment, Helena broke free and almost made it to the exit, but remained unnoticed. Anne wants to fix their relationship. She jumped on the guy and started doing something interesting with him. All of this is happening in front of Helena. For a second, Nick imagined himself in Anne's shoes, and then it was over. Helena was amused by this pathetic sight. Anne is now trying to calm down her fast boyfriend. The upset Nick asked to be left alone, but then the phone rang, which Anne had managed to turn on. This made him angry, and he demanded that she leave immediately, giving him the keys to the house. She did so. At that moment, a shadow flashed in the bushes. It was Ray, who was hiding there and watching the house. Nick called the flower shop and ordered another bouquet for Helena as soon as possible. The girl began to mock him. Nick thought that if Helena was a normal woman, she would have told him that everything was fine between them. She would have done it out of love and respect, but she only felt contempt for him. It turned out that the last time the guy ordered flowers to Helena's address, he was trying to deflect suspicion. He, unlike the captive, could jump rope, and Helena, meanwhile, was surrounded by a huge number of flowers. Nick approached her to give her medicine, and when he stepped aside, it turned out that she had fallen and cut her hands. Suddenly, she started laughing, and Nick was quite alarmed. The man continued to play sports, and Helena begged him never to leave her alone, hoping that she would be found someday. But in Nick's opinion, no one would take care of her like he did. When Helena was dozing off, the boy called the pharmacy to order the necessary medicines. The girl woke up and called him, but suddenly the phone rang. It was Lawrence. Nick told him that he was living with Helena. Lawrence wanted to know how she was doing, and Nick picked up the phone. However, it turned out to be another cruel game, because he had already cut the wire. Helena was hurt that she could not send him to the next world. She was sure that her injuries were not serious at first, but Nick turned her into a helpless piece of body. Then, Nick pulled out a gun and said he could fulfill her wish and send himself to the next world. But in her position, that would not be an option. At that moment, the man imagined that Helena was safe and sound. When he came to, he had an interesting idea. He ordered a girl of a certain profession and started doing something with her in front of Helena to prove what kind of man he could be. He continued to take care of Helena like a doll. Every day he brushed her hair, read her books, and spoon-fed her. One day she said she wanted to feel like a woman again. Nick realized where this was going and decided to add some romance. He placed an order in a store, a bottle of vodka and lemon juice, just like Helena liked. The shopkeeper immediately called Ray. He rushed to the mansion just as Nick was kissing Helena. He was shocked to see what was left of the girl. When he woke up, he rushed at Nick and started beating him until he lost consciousness. Helena screamed that she loved him and begged him not to leave her. Nick regained consciousness, but not at home, but in the hospital. He had dozed off during the surgery performed by Dr. Allen. Anne asked him to come to her after work, and the same nurse came out of the elevator. Nick walked into Helena's room and kissed her hands. Her feet were still there. It turned out that he had called an ambulance right after the accident and accompanied her to the hospital. Time passed, but the surgeon was still haunted by these strange dreams.